this video we're going to be changing the functionality of the mouse. If we just have a quick look at the mouse cursors in the Project Explorer, you can see that we've got a walk to, look at, interact, talk to, and all the other lovely things. This is very typical of the classic Sierra, like old school point and click adventure games, like Monkey Island and things. It's sort of like verb action. We don't need any of that because this game is really 100% UI. That's the nature of the game. So we just need a one button kind of solution. So I'm going to go into the scripts and go into edit script for the global script, and we're going to scroll down till we find where is it? Here we go. On mouse click. So basically all of this controls what happens when you press your mouse buttons, and we're going to get rid of it. So this is going to be quite a dry tutorial, really. It's a small chunk of script, but it's a bit complicated. You're probably never going to look at this little lump of script ever again once you've wrote it, but I'll try and explain it as much as I can as we go through. So I'm going to create an int, which is just an integer variable, and I'm going to call it LT. It could be anything that you want, but it's going to be, for me, that I'm just in my head, that's location type. So it's going to be equal to get location type mouse.x mouse.y. So all that's doing is when we press the mouse button, it's going to take a recording of the mouse's current position in its X and Y and store it in this little LT variable that we've made. So we also need to make a variable for our active inventory items if we have anything active. So we're going to go into type in inventory item, and it's gone turquoise. That means it's basically a pointer, a variable. So a pointer is a variable that points to a particular class of actor in AGS. So in this case, it's an inventory item. It could be a character, it could be a room, it could be a hotspot, it could be an object. In this case, we're using an inventory item, and we're going to give this a variable name as well. So we're just going to call it AI for active inventory equals, so player dot active inventory, and we're going to create another one which is IA, which is inventory active. Again, these things could be anything you want to call them, but I just like to keep them short because they're not something I'm ever going to look at again. Inventory square brackets game dot env. You can see that it's trying to autofill, so we're just going to go with that. Activate semicolon. So there we go. It's going to store the player's active inventory item into the AI, so we know what's active. So let's create some if statements. So if button equals e mouse left. So what we're doing there is if the button equals, if the left mouse button equals true, then this is what we want it to do. So if LT, remember that little integer variable we made. So if the location type equals e location nothing room, and as you can see, room's gone turquoise because that's a pointer. Dot process click at mouse dot x mouse dot y. Then we're going to set the cursor mode that's built into AGS. So we're going to go with walk to. Else if, and this is for if you have an active inventory item, so AI room.process click mouse.x mouse.y, then we're going to set the mode to emode use inventory. Else room dot process click mouse dot x mouse dot y. I'm going to set the E mode to interact. So let's just quickly run through this. So if the current location of our mouse is on nothing, like just the room background, then it's by default the cursor mode is going to be the walk to cursor. Else, if we're actually over an inventory item, we're going to switch to the mode, the use inventory mode. Else, which means if there's nothing else we can be doing, then like say the mouse is over an object or a character, then it's going to do an interact. So what do we do if we press the right mouse button? So else if button equals E mouse right. So what happens if we press the right mouse button? What we want for that is almost like a deselect. So if you have an item selected from your inventory and you're like, I don't want to use that, you can press the right mouse button and it deactivates it and gets rid of it. So if active inventory, remember that little variable that we made, player dot active inventory equals null. So that's just going to get rid of our active inventory item. Else room dot process click mouse dot x mouse dot y. I hope that this is making sense really. And we'll just do a look at. Okay. So that's what happens when we press the right mouse button. We essentially deselect our item and switch the mode. But the cursor has some other states when the inventory window is open and your cursor is over it. So we're going to change, also set a few, need to also set some additional things. So else if button equals E mouse and there's left env, left inventory. So we're going to have that and change a few things here. So if AI, a lot of this section probably won't make a lot of sense, but if you kind of keep up with it, hopefully we can figure this out. So active inventory, if the inventory is active, dot run interaction E mode, and we're going to use inventory. Okay. Else player dot active inventory equals inventory active. Okay. Right, and then we also need to do something with the right mouse button. So else if button equals E mouse right inventory. So if you press the right mouse button when you're in your inventory mode, essentially the same really, but we're going to null the active inventory. So if active inventory player dot active inventory is equal to null. So that's going to basically switch our cursor back to this state that we're about to write now. So else inventory active dot run interaction e mode. We'll just do a look at. Okay. So you can essentially click on items in your inventory and look at them. So I think that's looking all good. We'll do a quick save. Let's see if there's any compile errors. And there is. I think I've probably misspelt something, that's all. So IA run into, yes I have, I've just spelt it incorrectly. Interaction. I've also done the same there, I think. Interaction. And we'll try and run it again. There we go, it's running. Really important to actually spell things correctly when you're coding. So that's everything running fine. So again, it is quite a hard follow. If you take your time with it, make sure that it's case sensitive. So make sure that you get everything spelt right and everything's properly in its uppercase or lowercase or in square brackets where it needs to be in square brackets. Make sure that you have all your semicolons at the end of your lines, and your curly brackets where they need to be curly brackets, and you shouldn't have any problems. It should run. It's very easy to miss something and make a mistake. So with that done, I'm just going to go into general settings at the very top, and I think there's an inventory section, and I think there should be something about a mouse wheel, because the mouse wheel is also a way of switching between your mouse cursor modes, and that's something that we need to disable. If I can find it somewhere. Maybe it's near the top, is it? Enable mouse wheel support. So I'm just going to set that to false. Okay, there we go. So that's set to false. So we'll save that. And the next thing we're going to do is I'm just going to go in to the mouse cursor modes, and we're going to change all of the graphics that came with the template with my own graphic. So in the image, I'm going to go into my UI folder, right click and import a new sprite, assets, and I should have a cursor sprite. It's a PNG, so the palette index 0 will be the transparency. So I'm going to have that in there, and that should be all right. Now I'm going to do the same, even though we're not using these really. I'm going to go and do the same for all of these, because eventually when we do a kind of a cleanup, I want to start removing some of these template, some of the graphics that come with the template, because it's just a bit dirty having them in there really. You may also have some user ones. You can actually just right click and delete them because we won't be using them. So we'll save that again, and we'll hit run.